is DG Vision Network.
First, the government must have the political will to decide to have the political will to turn things around. If you don't, you just be wasting time. A government that is so behemoth, so structured in such a way that more resources are poured into government than into the people, there's no way Nigeria, with about 233 million people, made up of 103 million women and about 117 million men, can grow. Look at the structure of the government. Over 37, 38 ministers. Each minister has his own special advisor. That special advisor is a big gun who has his own special advisor. That second special advisor has his own special assistant. The special assistant has his own personal assistant. The personal assistant has his own driver. At times, his own cook. You have one layer of government having up to 50 accretions. Over 90% of our national income is spent on recurrent expenditure rather than on capital expenditure. So we need a lean government, a government that is lean. Look at what happened in South Africa when President William Ruto, who came in popularly 2 years ago, became strong-headed, big-headed, wanted to take another $2.7 billion loan, taxing the already impoverished people up to bread. The people rioted. For weeks, they are still on it. They went to parliament, broke it down, and many of them have been killed because IMF was dictating the policies of South Africa. Today, Nigeria is World Bank and IMF driven. All the policies will remove oil subsidy, will let the naira float. How do you allow a naira to float when you have no exports? Can they see what the Asian Tigers did? By investing in education, technology, and export. That was what brought out the Asian Tigers. South Korea, Japan, which are the other, in Singapore, Indonesia. Go to some of these countries, Malaysia, you will be shocked and amazed as to the development that these people have had. But when you have a government that spends more on itself, they buy SUV vehicles. You see a minister coming with about 10 vehicles. A governor is coming with about 15 vehicles. All of them have to be fueled. All the drivers have to be paid. All the aides have to be paid. What is the president doing with a brand new aircraft costing over 150 billion naira? Do you know how many hospitals 150 billion naira can establish across Nigeria? Why are senators receiving over, according to some of them, over 25 million naira a month in a country where the Nigerian Labour Congress had to go on strike just to be able to get 70,000 naira minimum wage to be paid? Today, my wife just went to the market some days ago and she said what they call the local rice, the dirty rice, was 82,000 naira in the market. Some of these ones that they call Uncle Ben's, this beautiful or foreign imported rice, some of them are 110,000, 120,000. So if you were receiving 70,000 naira, it means you are receiving an amount that cannot even purchase for you a bag of rice. Tomatoes, tarodo, tatashi, condiments to cook soup have gone up the rooftops. Many families can't even use vegetable oil, not even palm oil. So Nigerians have come to a stage again where we are so much worse off as a people Is it NEPA light and as a PHCN? In my offices and in my house, there are times you have to pay an amount that we used to pay in 6 months. You pay it in 2 weeks or 1 week. Businesses are collapsing. The hospitality industry cannot function because double taxation will come in, PSCN will come in. If you have to use generator, apart from the expensive spare parts you have to need, the diesel, how much? About 1,200 to 1,800 per liter. So businesses are folding up and relocating to neighboring countries. Go to Ghana. Where is Michelin? Where is Dunlop? Where is Nestle? Where are the major UAC, Kingsway, all the companies we used to know? They are still existing, most of them, but they have relocated out of Nigeria. And the poverty level is escalating on a daily basis. The people are suffering. The people are hungry. The people are angry. The people are despondent. That is what led to that. That was what led to that peaceful demonstration by young Nigerians, the youth, whose yesterday had been stolen. They are today already stolen, and they are now fighting that their tomorrow should not be pilfered. In those days, people like Gowon became head of state at the age of 32. He was even a bachelor. Dr. Matthew Mbo, late, was already a minister at the age of 25, and Nigeria's permanent representative and minister of foreign affairs at about 26, 27. Today, a student enters university at 18. He's sure to spend the next 7, 8 years for him to graduate because of incessant strikes by teachers, because teachers are not being paid, and where they agree with government on certain things to be, certain sums to be paid, the government will renege. So year in, year out, we go through this recurring decimal of withdrawal of services by teachers like a stock record. The government should therefore know that the end bad governance was a symptom of a fundamental problem that is afflicting the country. And I have told the president again and again that he should look into the issue of our constitution. People say, oh, is it constitution that is food? Will he give us food? It will more than give you food. If you do not treat an ailment from the fundamentals, the ailment will linger. If the walls of your house are cracking because there's a big tree in the compound whose roots have shot into the foundations of the house, what do? You go and merely cut off the branches of the tree. They will grow again, and the taproot will continue to be there, and they will continue to destroy your house. What you do is to go to the taproot of the tree and cut it out. Then the roots will stop growing. Those walls should be patching by calling in a bricklayer to patch with concrete, with mortar, and the cracks will become wider, will suddenly stop. We therefore need a brand new constitution that is autochthonous, indigenous, people-based, driven by the people. That is what we accord it legitimacy and respectability and ownership by the people. Because the process by which a constitution comes into being is even more important than the contents of a constitution. That is why we do not believe in ourselves, because we didn't agree to live together in the first place before January 1, 1914, when Lord Lugard, forcefully amalgamated the northern protectorates and southern protectorates to form Nigeria. Look at America. Between May and September 1787, 50 Confederates gathered in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, to discuss about their life, to have a more perfect union. Of those 50 Confederates, 36 signed for a new constitution, which was subjected to a referendum of the people. It was that constitutional convention that drew up their main planks of living together: federalism, presidentialism, judicial review of administrative actions, the principle of separation of power, which is 1748 had been espoused by Baron de Montesquieu, a great French philosopher. So they now agreed on those articles of faith, including a Bill of Rights for the people. That is why the American Constitution, with just about 27 amendments and about 7,891 words, has been able to survive till date, because the people made it for themselves. In nearby Tunisia, Libya, South Africa, Algeria, the people made their own constitutions and subjected them to a referendum of the people. Go around the world. Denmark? Is it Canada? Is it even the UK joined the Brexit? Is it Yugoslavia? Is it Netherlands? Is it Switzerland? Is it France? Is it Germany? At one time or the other, Singapore, Malaysia, Iran, Iraq, at one time or the other, the people made their own constitutions through a constituent assembly and subjected it to a referendum of the people, as was done by the old Midwest region, which excised from Western region through a popular plebiscite of the people on the 10th of August 1963. So when we do not have a constitution that we believe in, and we are still operating an illegitimate document, which is actually an attachment to a schedule to decree number 24 of 1999, how can we believe in ourselves? How can we believe in ourselves when the form you have to fill ask for your name, your surname, then ask for your town, then ask for your local government, then goes on to ask for your tribe, goes on to ask for your religion. So by the time you are being profiled as to your religion, as to your tribe, you are already being cut down or being taken up in terms of national resources. So we need to have what you call unity in diversity, because we are all different. 374 ethnic groups in Nigeria, as found out by Professor Onigu Otite, a great sociologist, in his demographic survey of Nigeria. So when you base Nigeria on a 40 tripod of Igbos, Yorubas, and Hausa Fulani, what happens to the other 371 ethnic groups? That is why Nigeria cannot settle. So we need to have that constitutional resurgimento, what late Dr. Kerum, by the way, we call resurgimento, national resurgimento. We need to go back to brass tacks. And the 2014 National Conference made over 600 recommendations, beautiful, that could have helped these people. That was a conference attended by 492 people from across all strata of the Nigerian society. No government are there to touch it. Whereas if they touch it, they will discover that we do not need a behemoth 109 senator assembly. We do not need a behemoth 360 House of Representative members in the red and green chambers respectively. That each of them is enough for the country. or you made them to sit on part-time and pay sitting allowances. If you tell them to pay it to take sitting, you will now have the real patrons coming forward to serve. But right now, the situation is different. Everybody runs to Abuja because everything is based in Abuja. What's the federal government doing with over 58% of our national resources, with the states having about 42%, and all local governments how much? About 80.something% of our national resources. So there's too much wastage at the center because we are practicing not federalism but a unitary system of government. Under our present 40 constitution, there are 67 items on the exclusive legislative list which only the federal government can deal with, not states. What is the federal government's business with licensing your cars and motorcycles? What's the federal government's business with marriage? Under the Marriage Act, you are only expected to be married under 3 different systems: Islamic law, customary law, and Marriage Act. Federal government. So your relationship with your husband and wife, the relationship between a husband and wife, is even governed by the federal government as to how you marry, how you live together, how you separate, how you divorce, how you have children, what happens to custody of the children. Have you ever heard, for example, in America, they say the president called for a meeting of all the 50 governors of America that they should report to Washington, D.C. for a meeting? They would say, is it crazy? Because each state is virtually autonomous in its own sphere. Each state has its own hierarchy of courts, from the lowest court up to the Supreme Court. Each state has its own police, so that apart from the federal police, the CIA, the FBI, the Washington Metropolitan Police Force, each state has its own police force. Each county council, which we call local government area here, has its own police force. Even tertiary institutions have their own police force. What are we doing with a BMO police force under section 214, 215, 216 of the Constitution? Controlled centrally from the top, to the extent that even though a governor is supposed to be the chief security officer of his state, the commissioner of state of police in his state, who is supposed to be responsible and answerable to the governor, does not do so because he has to refer instructions to the Minister of Police Affairs and to the federal government and to the Inspector General of Police in Abuja. So when a crime is to be committed and you need rearmament, the commissioner will call the IG, sir, can I do this? That is not how to operate a federal system. So we need to break down Nigeria. It is a wobbling contraption. It's not unified. Unity in diversity is what I'm talking about. That was why when Nnamdi Azikiwe and Sardauna of Sokoto, Ahmadu Bello, they had a discussion in the 1940s. Nnamdi Azikiwe said, Ahmadu, let us forget our differences. Ahmadu Bello said, no, Zik, we cannot forget our differences. We must recognize our differences. You are an Igbo man, an Easterner, and a Christian. I am a Fulani, a Northerner, and a Muslim. It is when we realize and recognize our differences that we can decide to move forward in unity. So Nigeria is still seeking for its nationhood. Look at the various constitutions we have had. What has been the problem? The nearest to a people's constitution was the 1960 and 1960 Independence Constitution and 1963 Republican Constitution. The nearest, because they were promulgated by the people themselves. The 1922 Clifford Constitution failed. The 1946 Arthur Richards Constitution failed. The 1951 McPherson Constitution failed. The 1954 Littleton Constitution failed. Then the 1960 and 1963 Republican Constitution ought to have guided us before they were cut down by the military purge of 15 January 1966, led by Major Cardinal Zogu Chukuma and other young military officers. Remember the Willings Commission for ethnic minorities that was set up in 1957 to address fears of ethnic minorities. The chain is as strong as the link. That little rope or thread tying a chain together is the strength of that chain. When you do not have recognition for the minorities, how can you further? What of the IBB Constitution of 1989 that was never used? What of the various conferences? I participated at the 2005 General Obasanjo's National Political Reform. I participated in Division 2019. I participated in the 2014 confab. All the suggestions we have made in all these conferences, where are they? That is why we are where we are. Nigeria is wobbly. Nigeria is groggy. Nigeria is broadly. And I pray that Nigeria will not crumble. Because we are at the edge of the precipice. When the people are hungry and you are put them to the wall, a hungry man is an angry man. And I again call on President Tinubu to rejig his government. It is too wasteful. The system itself is endemically and systemically corrupt. The system itself. That you can't get anything done in Nigeria without giving a bribe or taking a bribe. That is not good for our nation. There are some countries you go to, when you give a tip to the driver who has taken, you say, sorry sir, don't do that. We don't do that here. If they get to know, you yourself will be in trouble and I will be in trouble. But we have built a country for ourselves where morals have gone down. Even from the family level, the youth no longer want to work diligently. Out of frustration, many of them now sleep at big halls doing this kalu, this betting. That's what they do. Some of them take to armed robbery, kidnapping, banditry. Some young ladies take to prostitution. Because there's a system that has not provided for them, that has not accommodated them, that has not instilled a spirit of nationalism in them. A system that has failed them to the extent that they believe that we are being treated like chaps, like children of bastardy, unrecognized by our dear country. So when late President J.F. Kennedy in 1960 was telling Americans, think not of what your country can do for you, but what you may do for your country. He was referring to a country where there were now civil liberties, welfare for the citizens, social welfare. A country where you can get up and probably beat your chest. I'm an American. If you ask an American, where are you from? He will say, sir, what do you mean, sir? You mean where I was born? Or where I schooled? Or where I work? Or where I live? A person may be living in New York, but is working in the nearby state of New Jersey. That same person may have been born in Atlanta, Georgia. He may have schooled in Los Angeles, California, and in Texas. So that is why when you ask him, where are you from? He will want to know, what do you mean by where I come from? But in Nigeria, if I ask you, you say, oh, me, I'm an Igbo man. I'm a Yoruba man, I'm Hausa, I'm Fulani. Because the country Nigeria is not put forward first. So we need that structural change, like Naaman the leper that dipped himself into River Jordan 7 times to cleanse himself of leprosy. We need a deliberate action to dip Nigeria into the political River Jordan, social River Jordan, economic River Jordan, cultural River Jordan, moral River Jordan, ethical River Jordan, for us to have the necessary resurgence that we need to have. And this should be done as urgent as yesterday. Because as the clock ticks, so do the dangers become more manifest, more profound, more expanded, more dangerous, more expedient. There's a clear and present danger. Yes, the government may have succeeded in brutally suppressing the revolt, or rather the peaceful demonstration that turned into violence. But the fact that a wound has been healed does not mean that the scar has vanished. Any day you touch that scar, it will bleed, showing that there's a problem that has not been looked into. The government needs to know, or needs to refuse to be deceived, that all is well, or that the people who were demonstrating, who were protesting, were sponsored. Sponsored by who? We don't need to sponsor a hungry man. We don't need to sponsor a jobless youth. Once he sees people on the street, he will join naturally, because the people are like him. So we should be careful not to create a society that is segregated into the haves and have-nots. Once we get to that stage, as we are now, with the middle class being wiped out, you will see us building walls that are again taller, higher than this building, as we are already doing. Well, the rich, they themselves can't speak. They can't sleep with two eyes closed. Some of them go with a retinue of more than 20 police guards fully armed. If you are sure of yourself that you have a peaceful society, why should you build a fence wall as high as Kirikiri prison walls? Why should you be carrying 20 fully armed personnel to guide you? It's because they themselves know that there's something wrong. Go to South Africa, you see the president. He will come out at times into a bukateria and eat. Go to Pretoria, the seat of government. It's a tourist attraction. Everybody can enter there to take pictures. Go to some countries, Macron of France, you will see him riding a bicycle on the street. On the streets. Because these are people. What of Michelangelo, the former chancellor of Germany? She lived in the same house all the years she was chancellor. She never dry cleaned her clothes, laundered her clothes with the husband. They were washing and cooking by themselves. When they asked her, they said, what am I doing with them? Why should I go and live in an expensive house because I'm chancellor? What if I live here? So the problem, the fundamental problem our politicians have is that they do not remember what you call the day after. The day after. They do not seem to realize that what you call the concept of ephemerality of power. That power is like the dew of the sky that appeareth now and disappeareth the next moment. If I tell you to name 10 governors of the last 8 years, I'm sure you will not be able to remember, because they came like a bubble and they have vanished. So we need serious structural changes. What are we doing with 8 years presidency or governorship, or 4 years each? Why don't you just make it a single term of 6 years, so that you come to your own and get out? We are practicing what you call, what in my own neologism or Zekpedia, modeled after Wikipedia, Legapedia, Encyclopedia, I call it electionocracy, which is a system where it is only elections that we hold as a ritual every 4 years. Once the governors are elected or appointed or selected, everybody goes to rest. Everybody goes to rest. It takes 1 year going around putting 1 or 2 streets and the street lights and the sinking boreholes, and the ceremonies organized to even open those boreholes. The amount spent is more than the price, the cost of the borehole itself. Then in another 2 years, election have already started. I tell you as I'm talking, electionary for the presidency of 2027 and for the governorship of various states have already commenced. Dividends is a word borrowed from the corporate world, which is derived from profit. Have we in Nigeria even made profit from which dividend can be derived? Is it the democracy that was famously defined by Abraham Lincoln on the 19th of November 1863 as government of the people, by the people and for the people? Is that what we are practicing? No, this is democracy for the rich, by the rich and for the rich. And that is sad. So we practice that electionocracy, then we practice what I call judocracy. Judocracy is a system where elections are held, votes are counted, the votes are not allowed to count, the people approach the judiciary, and the courts, in the hallowed presence of courts of law, governors are delivered, midwives are delivered, presidents and midwives are delivered, senators, House of Reps members, chairman of local government, they are conceived and delivered. That's judocracy. What of executocracy, where the executive is in charge of everything, breathing down heavily on the judiciary and the legislature, the other two equal arms of government? That is executocracy. What of legislocracy? Legislotocracy is a system, another genre of democracy that we are operating, where the legislature, when the president comes with a bill come with a bill for a budget, they will say, oh, Mr. President, you put 20 trillion, we make it 23 trillion. The president said, this is what I want. They cannot interrogate it. They simply nod their head like a gamma lizard. Yes, yes, Mr. President, we will do it, sir. Budgets are padded. Salaries are bloated. Meanwhile, the cost of living is getting higher and higher and out of the reach of the common man. That is legislotocracy. Politics we practice now, Lamidi Adedibu once called Begiri politics, Amala politics. I call it politics of Omisagwe, politics of Omukboka, politics of Ememi, politics that are anti-people, but for the elites who have become state captors, controlling virtually the entire resources of the country. Nigeria is on a dangerous precipice. And the earlier the Tinubu government realizes it, the better. God bless Nigeria.
Innovation and lifestyle. Please like, share, and subscribe to this channel. www.youtube.com/digivationnetwork.